Hi everyone, my name is Rebecca Maria Goldschmidt. I am an artist and an educator, and I am based in Tijuana, Mexico, which is right south of San Diego, California. And although I live in Tijuana, I also work in San Diego, and I am currently living what we call a transfronterizo lifestyle, which is someone who crosses the border back and forth between the United States and Mexico for work or for school, or maybe just to go see a movie or go to Jack in the Box. But that's the lifestyle that I'm living right now, and I'm really excited to be presenting to you guys and to have the opportunity. I want to thank Katie for giving me the opportunity to share the work that I'm doing here, both in San Diego and Tijuana. Pretty much what I'm going to be talking about today are two projects that I'm working on, one on the Tijuana side and one on the San Diego side. Both of them are youth photography programs, participatory photography programs is what we like to call them, and working a lot around ideas and exploring concepts of identity, self-representation, ways of manipulating social media and contemporary image making practices to represent yourself, pretty much. Most of the populations that I'm working with are between about 13 and 21 years old, and right now I'm specifically working with women, young girls. So I'm gonna tell you a little bit about two different projects and share some of the work that we're doing in both of those projects, and hopefully if you guys have questions, you can feel free to contact me afterwards. I'm very open to learning more about other programs that you guys are working on or other things that you're interested in. I'm not an academic, I'm an artist, I'm a teacher. I'm interested in all kinds of different theories and radical pedagogy, so I just think this is a great forum for us to be talking about what's happening down here. So the first project I'm going to talk about is called Las Fotos project. We were started in 2010 by a guy named Eric Ibarra who lives in Los Angeles and still lives there and still runs Las Fotos project. And about a year and a half ago I started mentoring with him at a site in Boyle Heights, which is in East LA. And pretty much it's a participatory photography and empowerment workshop for young women, mostly Latinas, mostly Mexicanas, but also some Guatemalans, Salvadorians. We do have Korean students, Filipina students, African American students, so it's a mix, but it's mostly Latina students in the urban center of Los Angeles, so downtown LA, East LA, and they're starting to launch some programs in South LA as well. And pretty much it's an after-school program for young women who are interested in photography and who are interested in sort of developing leadership skills. It's a project-based learning modality, so everything that we do is based on different projects that are built into our curriculum, and we run various programs. The program that I'm running here in Tijuana is called Esta Soy Yo. I started with that program in Los Angeles, and it means this is me, and it's basically just a way to explore yourself, explore your community, explore abstract versions of yourself, non-representational versions of yourself, through using images. Sometimes we work with collage or painting or other kinds of visual art, but mostly we focus on photography. And so what happens in that program, it's a 12-week program, and we usually have about 10 students in the classroom and usually 2 to 3 mentors. Pretty much the mentors are artists or photographers or other folks, public health workers, social workers. Maybe they work at Planned Parenthood, but people who are women mostly who are interested in mentoring another young woman. Most people are very interested or have some kind of capacity in photography because that's what we focus on. So we just basically do really basic photography skill workshops in composition, in color, in lines, in angles, and perspectives, and we give the girls a sort of basic vocabulary to use when they're exploring their surroundings and exploring themselves. The last semester the theme was home, So the students were, through a series of activities every week, were encouraged to take photographs depicting what they think represents home to them. And in that sense, we had a lot of different images coming back. So I launched the program here, and through crowdfunding, two different crowdfunding programs through GoFundMe, and then I think we used Fundadora, which is a Mexican-based crowdfunding platform. We raised about $2,000, about $1,000 for each semester, and we were able to do 2 semesters here in Tijuana. We are running the same program that they are running in Los Angeles. The girls have an assignment every week, and they're exploring different themes. So the theme we were working on last semester was home. The first semester was La Mujer Poderosa, the like powerful women or empowered women. In that theme, a lot of girls were talking to their mothers, to their grandmothers, to other cousins or other family members or other teachers or people in their community who were interesting to them, who had a story of empowerment. And they documented these people and did interviews, and using all of the different photo techniques that we talk about in class, they have the opportunity to sort of like get a little bit closer and a little bit deeper into their communities and share what they've learned or what they feel like is important to share with their peers. And then we have, at the end of each semester, we have a big group show that is shown in Los Angeles. So the girls from Tijuana were able to send their images to LA and to participate in that show in the spring of last year. And then also in December of 2015, there was another show working with the theme of home. And we were able to show our images there. So it's been really exciting for the girls who are in Tijuana. I never want to say that much about the violence in Mexico, because I never want to portray this place as a place that's like only about violence. But in reality, there is intense corruption and political violence and a lot of daily struggle that's happening here still, although it's not in the media, and the media has decided that it's not cool to talk about Mexico anymore. It still exists, and the women who live here and the women who are working and studying here still face a lot of difficulties in just day-to-day life, whether it's just walking down the street or taking public transportation or being alone in any certain kind of way. There's also a lot of cultural issues. Being able to offer young women a space where they can be creative and they can feel empowered and they can have tools and they can have resources and mentors to help them confront some of those issues and deal with them and look at them is very, very important. And it's also important to, just have fun. I think that's a really huge component of the work that we do is just being able to relax in a place where you're amongst other women who are interested in photography. And I think there's also a lot to say just on terms of empowerment. Documenting yourself as a woman is still something that's very powerful, and still something that, in the millions and millions and millions and millions of images that exist and have existed in the past however many 180 years of photography, let's say, it's still so radical to be documenting your own life. And that's something that we always try to tell the girls. Like, they're like, oh, well, this selfie doesn't really mean anything. And I'm like, well, actually, like, if you think about all the selfies that all the women in all the world are making versus all of the images of you that people have portrayed, it is really powerful. And it's powerful for you, for yourself, for your own self-esteem, for your own issues, for your own body image issues, for your own ideals of beauty, for your own definitions of who you think you are, to have that kind of time to reflect. And I'm not saying that we tell the girls like, yeah, just keep taking selfies, but it works really well as a tool, and the girls really enjoy it, and they're doing it anyways. So if they're going to be doing it anyways, then we might as well use it as something that's positive for them, and that's giving them a sort of positive feedback and way to share with their friends. There's still a lot of like hate on self-love and hating on being an empowered person, and sort of like trying to contradict that idea that they have about vanity and what it means to sort of love yourself, sort of planting the idea, the sort of like very, very radical idea that looking at yourself and loving yourself is something that is worth it. So I'm gonna jump over to the other side of the border, which is a project called the Aja Project that was founded around 2000 by a guy named Shinpei Takeda, who's an artist who also lives in Tijuana. He's Japanese. He kind of goes between Japan and Germany, but he founded this project about 15 years ago. And again, it's a participatory photography program that works mainly with refugee and immigrant communities in San Diego. So we're based in a neighborhood called City Heights, which is a very, very diverse neighborhood in San Diego. If you guys probably imagine San Diego as this like big beach town with surfers and kind of like, it's a big Navy town, a lot of military presence here, but it's also the highest population of Iraqi refugees, very large population of Somali and East African refugees, Vietnamese, Laotian. It's a really, really, really diverse mix of people. So we're really lucky to be working there. And because of that great mix of people, we're doing work mostly around identity issues and sort of storytelling and narrative. And so the work that I'm doing right now, I'm working with a program called Collective Voices, which is founded by the Doris Duke Foundation for Islamic Art. And we're working with a neighbor organization called the United Women of East Africa. And with a group of about almost 20, I have about 18 girls who are mostly Somali. Most of them are children of Somali refugees. Some of them were born in Somalia or Eritrea and are now living in San Diego. So we have a really interesting group of really empowered and really intelligent and really engaged young women. And it's really a pleasure to work with them because they always come in wanting more and they're very engaged politically. So the first phase of the program that we did was based around personal identity and sort of defining, giving a visual definition to your sort of outside self and inside self. We work a lot with the sort of dualities of identity, how people perceive you and how you perceive yourself. So within that first program, we did symbolic self-portraits, some just basic selfie creation, but then we also did a lot of narrative writing. So a lot of the girls are into poetry, probably most of them. I don't want to say they're all poets, but they love writing and they love poetry. So we created sort of like a narrative dynamic that went with the images that they created. And then in this second piece that we just started, it's the second phase of the program. It's about a year-long program. This second phase, we're going to be doing generating more content for a larger public art installation that's going to be going into a photography museum here in San Diego and then have another sort of public art component. So we have like a lot of stuff going on within that program. There were not only just like the self-portraits and narratives, we're also working on a public art component, and we also put together 4 different workshops with other teens in various neighborhoods in San Diego, and that was a program called Interface that the girls were responsible for helping coordinate and facilitate. But Interface was a collaboration with the San Diego Museum of Man, in which they took several busts that were presented at the 1916 World's Fair here in San Diego. And they were representations of the 3 primary races of the United States. And so they had from birth, from infant to old person, they had busts created by an artist that represented every race. So they had African Americans, they had Native Americans, and then they had the white purebred American race. And so what we did was we brought in these objects for the students to look at and observe and make notes on. Some anthropologists from the Museum of Man gave a presentation about kind of contextualizing the busts, why they were made, what they could possibly mean. And then we just facilitated dialogue around that idea of representation, why those images are important, what they mean in a contemporary context, and then the students were able to sort of dialogue and converse around what it means to them to see these kinds of images. And then we also gave them the opportunity to take their own self-portraits in a studio setup. So what we were really talking about was the idea of representation versus self-representation, what it means in terms of power dynamics, in terms of creating an image for yourself, to be able to document yourself, and the power that you have in your hands, in this small little iPhone or in your whatever Android, the power that you have as a young person to represent yourself instead of continually being represented by the media or by movies or other kinds of images that you may see that are telling you what your identity should be. And in that sense, because we're working with populations that are very marginalized, that are dealing with intense trauma based on how they look. Most of my women in my class, young women, wear the hijab, so they look physically a certain kind of way that attracts a certain kind of attention, and based on a lot of current events and a lot of really intense anti-Muslim attacks and violence, and even just, I would just say, confusion and ignorance. Based on all of those experiences that they've had, and based on the sort of photographic training that we're giving them, we're trying to create a public art piece that's going to engage more conversation around image and representation, and how we can sort of surpass these stereotypes and prejudices and concepts of prejudgment based on people's physical appearance, and how we can sort of start to break down, or at least offer young people a way to feel empowered and feel that they are in control of their own image. And the most wonderful thing about this, and I'll show you the last slide that I'll show you, is a project that Hodo, one of my students, who's the youngest student in my class, did. She always comes out with some really amazing and really poetic ways of describing her ideas. And pretty much she made these images of this brick wall and of herself looking over it. And the premise of her work was really that society, or you, or the outside world, is continuously trying to put us inside a certain kind of box, and continuously trying to create a wall between who we really are and what people think we are. And her message was so powerful because she was just like, I'm just not having that. She was like, I'm just not engaging with that. I am me, I am whole, I am one person, and I'm unique, and there's nothing that can stop me from being that. And so really what we found in so many of our workshops, working with so many different kinds of teens, is even though there is a lot of maybe hesitance or unsurety in who they are, so many of these young people are very empowered and determined to say that I don't care what you think that I am positive and I am whole in myself. And I think using imagery and using photography to help them come to that point, or even help them further define or solidify that kind of identity. I mean, we all talk about, in all of our workshops, both in San Diego and in Tijuana, I talk about fluidity of identity, how we're working within multiple identities all the time, but that no matter what kind of identity you decide to portray or portray yourself as, that you are always in charge of that identity, and that it is impossible for anyone to tell you what you should be. And so that's pretty much the work that we're doing here. If you have any questions, please feel free to write me, or if anyone is in the area, I'm happy to meet up. And I hope that was helpful. And I hope you guys have a great class. Thank you so much for having me. And I hope that we can continue to make change in educational systems with young people, for future generations of image makers, so that we can continue to document stories and continue to tell stories and explore identities that that haven't really been explored yet. Thank you so much. Bye.